Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Damage Report. I am John Idarola. We got a lot to talk about. First of all, I love the Drink Moxie says in a comment. I love the freeze frame. It makes John look like a sitcom dad during the very special episode where he has to talk to his kids about the dangers of drugs. Someday. Someday. Anyway, thank you for being here. We do have news, including Rand Paul indeed being a vapid little weenie. We'll be talking about that in just a few. Got some fun video. Lots of other stories too, though. So please hit the like button, share the stream. If nothing else, you will be rewarding me for starting earlier than we normally do on the pre-port. And because we have to end a little bit early, actually. So why don't we jump into the news? We're going to start off with our evaluation of the COVID situation. All of the numbers are going down, which is the good news, although the test positivity rate has not actually budged, and the deaths are only beginning to go down, and they're still very high. If you recall, not that many months ago, we were in the low 300s. So still, close to twice that. Also, bear in mind, having 300 people die every single day, day after day after day after day, wasn't great to begin with. Before we jump into the big political news, I just want to briefly mention I go on Reddit a lot. I spend a lot of time on Reddit and a little bit of time on Twitter. I used to spend more time on Twitter, but it sucked before and now it's worse. I have noticed a major increase in pathetic men talking and discussing, either in tweets or on Reddit threads, about body count. Okay, I'm going to give you an example of it. So here's an account saying high body count is a deal breaker for most men. It's tough, but working women with 5+ bodies just isn't what young men will settle. They don't care about money. It's been proven time and time again. I feel sad for how confused women are about what high-value men want in a wife. And what they want is someone with no experience for reasons that we're not really going to define. We're going to pretend that it's something about them. It's something about purity or innocence or something like that. It's nothing about us. The fact that I want someone who has been with as few people as possible, preferably nobody, is about them. It's not about me or any of my fears or insecurities or anything. And so, look, there's a lot of stuff that weak men do that bothers me, but one of the main themes is cloaking insecurity, anxiety, and weakness in the, facade of strength and alphaness. Like, having insecurities, having anxieties, and all of that is perfectly fine. One should deal with them, though. Like, we're trying to normalize people having open conversations about it. And bear in mind, these guys are talking about it. They just don't realize that that's what they're talking about. They think that they're projecting some sort of old school version of masculinity and talking about what women should ideally be. But at the same time, they are transparently revealing all of their own fears about being unable to satisfy women and being worried that if they're with someone else, well, then she'll be thinking about the other people or comparing me to the other people. Or maybe some of them have actually bought into the bullshit about feminine purity or whatever. Do the guys think that they become less pure as their body count goes up? You'll note that they don't often talk about that. Some maybe, incels, I don't know. But it's not something that they generally talk about. I don't know what they think it's supposed to mean. Like, let's say that their prospective perfect wife has only ever been with one person, but they boned 10,000 times in every conceivable way, in every conceivable setting. Truly horrifying stuff that they found, in the deep recesses of the dark web or something. That person, pure, based on their definition. But someone who had 5 vanilla experiences, one time each with different people, dirty slut. It's stupid. It's baby-brained stuff. But this is the sort of propaganda that people like Andrew Tate and others use to corrupt the weak minds of a number of men. Anyway, you can't start early without giving me a heads up. I apologize. I did give you all a heads up. And the notification when the stream started. Sorry, I have to briefly help my wife with something coming up right after the stream, so I have to end a little bit early. So I worked hard to start a little bit early. So anyway, the body count stuff, Jesus. I'm not saying you can't have preferences or whatever. Again, if you're like horribly worried about the person that you're with having had other experiences, that's fine. but stop pretending that it's some sort of objective measure of moral value of another person. Anywho, let's talk about other news. So, okay. I wanted to briefly mention this. Did you see this going around? So the Oscars nominations have come out. I'm mildly excited for the Oscars. This isn't a year in which I've watched a lot of the movies that are up for it, and some of them I'm just not interested in. But anyway, one movie that I did see, and I am interested in potentially winning some Oscars, is Everything Everywhere All at Once. And so the Hollywood Reporter apparently kicked up a bit of a ruckus when they put out a tweet saying that Michelle Yeoh is the first person in the category to be nominated for an Oscar who identifies as Asian. So Fox News, you can see, has a very long article about this, because do you see what they're doing? It's about identifies as Asian. What are you talking about? Is this another woke culture war thing? And so they mention it, and then they go through all these responses to it. Here's a tweet, and there's a tweet, another person, you're a weirdo, what are you doing? And then way farther down, they acknowledge, well, the reason that they did that is because there have been past actresses who were Asian but couldn't publicly identify as Asian because we live in a fundamentally fucking racist country, so they had to pretend that they weren't. That's what they're talking about. Fox News knows that's what they're talking about. They eventually go into that. And in fact, I want to give credit to, where's the tweet? Did they remove her tweet? Hold on one second. Kim Horcher, formerly of TYT, saying people are making jokes about identifies as Asian, but it's because people used to hide that they were Asian due to needing to survive amid extreme prejudice. So the person at Fox who wrote this knows exactly what is going on. If you're going to have an article about this, it can be really fucking short. You can just point out, people freaked out over the Hollywood Reporter, but here is clearly what they meant, and it's some interesting and important context to add to this. No. Instead, they extract as much culture war bullshit out of it as they can, knowing that that is not at all what this is about. So fucking pointless. God. Anyway, thank you to the people who added the context, including Kim Horcher, who apparently now is receiving harassment for pointing out that that is obviously what is going on. What a because again, why shouldn't we take a situation where the context is racism, we're now acknowledging it, a person explains that, and then suffers racist harassment for fucking explaining something? Why not? Why should that be the way that it works? Okay, two more, at least, stories for you. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. How is it going, Claudius? Glad to have you here. Okay, so I want to take you back to last year as the price of gasoline starts to go up, okay? So there's all sorts of supply chain issues, and there's the war in Ukraine and everything, and then so price of gasoline starts going up. And we engage in a months-long national debate about, hey, I wonder why the price of gasoline is going up. And people who are literally paid by the fossil fuel industry, whether they're politicians receiving donations from them or media companies who receive huge amounts of money to run ads for their gas, ads that are not intended to reach actual consumers. It's just a way of paying the network to influence their coverage of the topic. They say, well, it's just inflation. It's just whatever. It's like the price is more expensive to produce it, and thus the price to buy it is more expensive. And that was bullshit. It was bullshit, obviously. Hey, Jedi Master Dragon. Sorry that you're just now getting over COVID. Apologize for that. Other people, Bernie Sanders, us, were pointing out that, yeah, it might be more expensive to produce it, but the amount that they're raising the price isn't actually tied to that. They're raising the price way, way, way more. And I thought there was pretty effective evidence of this in that their profits were going up. Not costs are going up, the amount they charge goes up, thus I guess the revenue goes up, but because the costs are up, then the profits stay the same. That is what you would have if they were only necessarily raising the price because the price to produce it was going up. That wasn't the case. The fact that they were making record-breaking fucking profits made that pretty clear. But, you know, we live in a country where the politicians are bought, the media is bought, so I guess we lost that argument. But we did point out along the way how this story inevitably was going to end, or, I guess at least one of the eventual spots we would get to it. And what is that? That they will use those profits in a particular way. And what do you know? Chevron has announced $75 billion in stock buybacks to benefit investors and executives after reaping record quarterly profits throughout last year. So they price gouged, because that's what it is, to such a record-breaking extent that they just have like 75 billion extra dollars sitting around. They're thinking, what the fuck are we gonna do with all of this crazy, dumb money we have? I guess we'll just artificially raise the price of our stock? And so that's what they're doing. And that's Chevron announcing this. More announcements will come from other fossil fuel companies. You'll notice, by the way, they're not pouring that back into lowering the price of gasoline, providing refunds to people who had to pay too much. No, it goes to the investors because they price gouged. They raised the price because they could, and Progress has pointed out that you could actually pass a law to stop that during a time when the right was so happy to talk about how people were paying too much for gas, but never identifying that they're doing that because the price is being artificially increased over and above anything like the extra cost to produce, to drill, or to refine, or to transport the fossil fuels. And so it's a great day for Chevron. It's a great day for their investors. Bad day for, the people who were price gouged all last year. Bad day for Earth and all that, but what are you going to do? And when I say what are you going to do, what we're going to do is fucking nothing, by the way. So anyway, okay, I want to get to our main story. Hit the like button if you haven't already, and let's jump into why do I have a beef with Rand Paul today? Well, here is why, or at least in part why.
If we were to have a $100 billion cut, which would still have us spending way more than we spent before COVID, a $100 billion cut in free spending, we would balance our budget in just 4 years. This is amazing. We have an opportunity here. It could be done, but it would take compromise between both parties. Republicans would have to give up the sacred cow that says we will never touch a dollar in military, and the Democrats would have to give up the sacred cow that they will never touch a dollar in welfare. Everything would have to be looked across the board. No one has a sacred area that would be immune. And when you make the cuts across the board, they aren't as big as you'd actually think they would be. It's a responsible thing to do, but President Biden needs to know, absolutely, he will negotiate, and it's better to start now. If we were to have a $100 billion cut, which would still have us spending way more than we...
Shut up, Rand Paul. Okay, so why do I have a problem with that? Because after all, isn't he being reasonable? Isn't he being fair? We're going to cut the stuff that I really love, but you guys have to cut the stuff that you really love. If they actually did that, if that's actually what they did, and they did cut across the board or whatever, that would technically be better than the usual way that we go about this when it comes time to cut spending by the government. I don't buy it. I don't buy that it would be anything like even. And even if it were, why is that the only way that this could work? Why is that the only way that you can lower the cost? Our military budget is, as we've pointed out many times, larger than the combined military budgets of basically everyone else on the planet. It is hundreds of billions of dollars a year more than it was just a few years ago. And I ask a simple question to the Rand Pauls of the world. Why? Why? Were we on the brink of being invaded by Madagascar in 2017? Why do we need to spend more each year on our military budget than most of our rivals combined when we already spent more than all of them combined? Why does it need to be even across the military and welfare, as he puts it? And he means cutting Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, all that stuff. Why should we have to balance bullshit protections from fake or exaggerated dangers, while also cutting the programs that allow people to live? Why is that the equivalence that we need? How about this? How about we have a military budget that makes sense for the actual threats, the external military threats that we face as a people. Because all of that welfare spending that he is so quick to disregard and to put on the chopping block, I would argue that that is national defense. National defense against hunger and homelessness and add a million other things. The actual threats that face tens of millions of people on a literal daily basis. Why is it that those have to be even things when the threats that face us as a people and as a country are not evenly distributed across both of those things? Why is it that the best we can get out of a Republican is vapid equivalence? Why is that? I wish that we had more time to talk about this. I'm sure that as we get closer to the national, the debt ceiling negotiations, decision being done and all that, we will be talking more about this. But thank you for joining us for this now. I have to run. Gotta help my wife. But it looks like Jared Jackson has now gone live. It's the Jackson and Jackson Hour over on the watch list. So everyone check that out. I've got Miranda Scholl is going to be joining me on my program in just a little bit. Hit the like button on your way out if you haven't already, and I will see you soon.